Miss Anne, and welcome to another Monday book tasting. Today we're going to be reading The Middler by Kristy Applebaum, and this is about a 11-year-old girl named Maggie who is the middle child in her family in a world where first children are valued the most. And her whole world is kind of turned upside down when she meets a wandering girl named Una from outside the boundaries of her town, Fenniswick. So we're going to read The Middler by Kristy Applebaum. We're going to read the prologue and the first two chapters, and then I'm going to share with you guys a couple of good read likes if you end up getting to read this, or if you're, looking for other books like this one. Prologue. Our eldest, Jed, got born first out of all of us. Our youngest, Trig, he got born 4 years later. And me, Maggie, I was in between, the middler. Worst luck. Monday, September 1st. Chapter 1. I took my summer diary out of my drawer. Nearly all the sheets of paper matched. On the very last page, I'd drawn a picture of a red admiral. It had black wings and bright red stripes, just like the ones we'd seen up at the butterfly fields. I straightened the yellow wool bow that held it all together and ran my hands over the front to flatten it down. I wouldn't win best diary, and eldest always wins that, but maybe I could get runner-up. I carried it downstairs. You ready, Mags? Trig had the front door open and was leaning right out of it, both hands gripping the door frame. His diary was on the doormat, tied up with garden string. We should have left already, shouldn't we, Dad? We should have left. Oh, Maggie. Dad shook his head at my legs. We really need to do something about that uniform. It's even shorter than it was before the holidays. He yanked at the bottom of my dress. It shrugged back up again. Jed, Jed, Jed! Trig was turning red with all his shouting. Just a minute, Jed's voice echoed down the stairs. Mom came out of the kitchen, booted up for a day in the fields. Leave without him, she said. It's his own fault if he's late. Come on, Maggie. Trig picked up his diary. But I wasn't going anywhere till Jed was with us. Eventually he appeared, shirt hanging out and jam on his chin. Did you remember your summer diary? Said Trig. It's in here. Jed turned around and patted his back pocket. His messy, folded pages flapped out of the top. Dad went to wipe the jam off Jed's face. But Jed ducked under his arm, and we all ran through the door into the warm September air. Trig was hopeless at running. He held his diary right out in front of him all the way to school. Me and Jed had to stop at every corner for him to catch up. Good morning, Mrs. Zimmerman. Good morning, Mr. Temple. Good morning, Miss Conteth. Good morning, Miss Webster. Good morning, everyone. The school hall smelled like the beginning of term. Wood oil and scoring powder. Smells weird, doesn't it, Maggie? Doesn't it, Jed? Smells weird. Trig fidgeted and scrunched up his nose. Shh, I said. Lindy Chowdhury was in front of us, all cross-legged and straight-backed and long-haired. Her dress had a new frill sewn around the hem. Jed scooted forward so he was sitting closer to her. Mrs. Zimmerman clasped her hands together in front of her waist. Mr. Webster has kindly spent part of his summer sanding and oiling our hall floor. Aren't we lucky? I spread out my fingers and pressed my palms onto the smooth wood. Must have taken him ages. Heads down, please, for the morning chant. Our eldest are heroes, our eldest are special, our eldest are brave. Shame upon any who holds back an eldest, and shame upon their kin. Most of all, shame upon the wanderers. Let peace settle over the quiet war, truly and forever. Mrs. Zimmerman lifted her head, tilted it to one side, and smiled. Welcome back to Fenniswick School, everyone. I hope you enjoyed your break. We bit at our nails and gazed up at the empty walls while she said all the things that principals have to say at the beginning of term. Mr. Webster has also dug over the toilets for us. Please be sure to use the new ones and leave the old ones to compost. We clapped for Mr. Weber. Ms. Conteth has returned to us after having her baby, a little boy named Michael, an eldest. We're hoping his dad might pop in with him one lunchtime. We clapped for Ms. Conteth. Two of our pupils, Sally Owens and Deb Marino, both eldest of course, turned 14 over the summer and have gone to camp. We clapped for Sally Owens, we clapped for Deb Marino. And two more of our eldest are heading off to camp this very Saturday, Jed Cruz and Lindy Chowdhury. Jed leaned in and nudged shoulders with Lindy. My hands were getting fed up with all the clapping. And just before we return to our classes, we have a special guest here today with some important news. Mrs. Zimmerman held out her arm toward the entrance of the hall. No one came out. We have a special guest here with some important news, she said again, louder this time. No one came out. Mr. Temple cleared his throat. He nodded towards the window. Mayor Anderson was sitting on the wall in the littlest outdoor play area, feet resting on a go-fast cart and two hands cupped round an enormous sandwich. Cheese, by the look of it. She finished up chewing, swallowing her mouthful, and gave us a wave. A few of us waved back. Mrs. Zimmerman took a deep breath in. Would you be so kind as to let the mayor know we're ready for her, Mr. Temple? Okay. Mayor Anderson stood in the middle of Mr. Webster's newly oiled floor, her hair drawn back into a straggly ponytail. I'm not going to beat around the bush and do all that "what have you learned over the summer" rubbish. I'll leave that to your teachers, eh? She gave us a wink and got a few snickers back from the audience. Mrs. Zimmerman closed her eyes. Ugh. But what am I going to do, the mayor went on, is tell you we've heard reports of wanderers 5 miles south of the town boundary. Wanderers? The sniggering stopped. Mrs. Zimmerman opened her eyes. A shiver crept across my shoulders. Yup, Mayor Anderson nodded. Yesterday, I was up in the city, met with some colleagues. It's been a while since we had wanderers in our area, but their numbers appear to be increasing. She took a slow moment to look from one side of the hall to the other, catching as many of our eyes as she could. So, she carried on, why do we not want wanderers nearby? Anyone? Trigg stuck his arm in the air as he could get it, as high as he could get it, pushed it even higher with his other hand. Mayor Anderson couldn't miss him. Go on then, tell us, Trigg. Trigg looked up to the ceiling the way you do when you're trying hard to remember something. Dirty, dangerous, and deceitful. Dirty, dangerous, and deceitful, Mayor Anderson boomed, the words back at us, counting them off on her fingers as she went. At camp, our eldest joined the quiet war. They fight valiantly. They fight heroically. They fight so that we, back home, can remain safe. My one and only child, Caroline, went to camp 10 years ago this very month. I couldn't be more proud. We clapped for Caroline. The mayor held up a hand. Wanderers, she said, are protected from the enemy by our brave heroes, but they selfishly keep their own eldest close. She lowered her hand to her hip. They disobey Andrew Solberry's edict that decrees we all send our eldest to camp. They deny their families the opportunities to live in a town in a civilized manner, and they deny their eldest the opportunity to fight for their country. They are dirty, dangerous, and deceitful. Do we want their kind anywhere near us here in Fenniswick? No, Mayor Anderson. We shook our heads. And more than that, the mayor leaned in towards us and lowered her voice to a whisper. Much more than that. You're aware of the horror wreaked by wanderers the last time they ventured close to Fenniswick. My own sister was among the casualties. She dropped her eyes to the floor. A littlest at the front began to cry. Trigg's knees started jiggling. So the mayor took a deep breath and lifted her head. What can we do to keep ourselves safe? What's the most important rule of all? Never go beyond the boundary. Trigg burst out the answer. Absolutely, Trigg Cruz. Never go beyond the boundary. Follow the rule and you'll be safe from wanderers. Remember, dirty, dangerous, deceitful. All right? Yes, Mayor Anderson, we nodded. She smiled. One of those smiles where the sides of your mouth go down instead of up. So how about we sing the boundary song to finish? Mayor Anderson rubbed her hands together. Mr. Temple, would you accompany us on the old piano? Still working, is it? Mr. Temple lifted the lid of the piano. He interlaced his fingers and turned them inside out. The clicking echoed all around the hall. Oh, a quick reminder before we start singing. Mayor Anderson wasn't smiling anymore. She ran her tongue across the front of her teeth. Going beyond a town boundary isn't only a risk to yourself, it puts the whole of Fenniswick in danger. Your friends, your families, your neighbors. And anyone who puts Fenniswick in danger could be subject to a very serious punishment indeed. So let's keep everyone safe, eh? Now carry on, Mr. Temple. The crying littlest cried even louder. Back in the classroom, Miss Contest talked about the time before the Quiet War and what summer holidays were like then. She said people used to go to other countries on airplanes. I doodled a picture of an airplane in the bottom corner of my slate, licked my fingers and rubbed it off. Sometimes I wondered if teachers just made stuff up. After break, Miss Contest asked for our summer diaries. She walked between the desks, collecting them and piling them up in her arms. I'll be reading through these this afternoon, and tomorrow I'll announce the winners. I pass her mine, taking care to keep the bow straight. Thank you, Maddie. Maddie? Lindy laughed. It's Maggie, Miss Contest, not Maddie. Oh, of course it is. Sorry, Maggie. The baby had me up four times last night. She put my diary on the pile, then stuck 6 more right on top of it, squashing the bow. Okay, that was the end of chapter 1. In a moment, we'll start chapter 2. Chapter 2. After school, we changed out of our uniforms and went up to the cemetery, right out near the Hawthorne boundary, hunting for wanderers. It was Jed's idea. Come on, he called down. Who's coming up next? He was balanced in the tallest tree, legs dappled by the leaves of the sun. Looked like he was wearing camouflage. The branches rippled in the heat. Me and Trig and Lindy all squinted up. Look! Jed pointed south past the red-berried hawthorn. Grandad Cruz's watch glinted on his wrist. I can see for miles. My heart ka-dunk, ka-dunk, ka-dunk under my t-shirt. Can you see any wanderers? Trig shaded his eyes with both hands. Of course not. By Ed, said Jed. We've got to watch and wait. He was up really high. My stomach swirled just looking at him. Do you think the mayor will give us a reward? I shaded my eyes too. You know, if we find one, will she read our names out in assembly? Jed laughed. You're never going to spot one, Maggie. You're just a middler. You're too scared to even climb up here. Yeah, you're always too scared of everything. Lindy elbowed me and Trig out of the way. Watch out, Jed. I'm coming up next. Jed grinned. It was his idea of heaven, sitting on a branch with Lindy all to himself. She walked between the 2 graves set under the tree. The headstones had ancient names carved into them. William Whittington, Georgina Millicent Cruz was my great-great-great-great-grandmother. Funny how the cemetery smelled of grass and soil and sap-laden trees, when actually we were surrounded by old dead relatives. Lindy got a naughty handhold on the trunk and found somewhere to put her first foot. She pulled herself up and found a second foothold, then a third, a fourth, and a fifth. She didn't have shorts on like me. She was wearing a stupid white dress that showed her underwear, if she even just climbed over a fence. She was nearly up to Jed. My mouth went dry. They were right. I was scared. Of climbing, of hunting for wanderers, of everything. So what, though? So what? We were never going to find one anyway. Jed held out his hand to Lindy. She grabbed it. She leaned away from the trunk and let go with her other hand. Her foot slipped on the dark bark. Their hands slid apart. Her stupid dress blew up around her waist. She bounced headfirst off the William Whittington gravestone and landed on the ground, blood all over her face. She lay there, still as you like. The sound her head had made on the gravestone replaced itself in my ear. Crunk. Like being whacked with a brick. Crunk. Her underwear was white, with little blue flowers on it, forget-me-nots. I stepped forward and pulled her dress down. It wasn't right for the boys to be seeing all that. No one screamed, no one shouted. Jed said something unrepeatable, but he said it really quiet, like his voice had been squashed by the shock. Then he half scrambled, half jumped down from the tree. He tried pulling Lindy up, but he couldn't lift her. Her blood got all over his hand. He pushed his hair out of his eyes and left a messy stripe across across the side of his head. Lindy, he said in a squashed voice. Lindy, Lindy, Lindy. She's dead, I said. No, she's not. She can't be. We have to go do something. And we stood there, all three of us, Cruz kids, looking down at Lindy Chowdhury with her white dress and her bloody face and her long, dark hair spread out on the grass. You have to check if she's breathing. It was Trig, who can't even hop or run or tie proper reef knots. If she's not, you have to breathe for her. First aid. We did it in the school, remember? Like ages ago. He swallowed. And one of us has to run for help. Jed knelt down next to Lindy. I'm not leaving here. You go, Maggie. Me? Quick, Maggie, you gotta run. So I ran. I ran through the cemetery, leaped over the old Parker graves and the Stanbury ones too, grass whipping at my ankles. I ran all down the edge of Anderson's field. Tiny black thunderbugs flew into my eyes, but I didn't stop to scrape them out. I just blinked and kept running. At the bottom of the field, I jumped over the sun-dried mud ridges and didn't trip even once. I skipped round the side of the old caravan park south of the town, all the time shouting, "Help! Help! Dr. Sunita!" I gasped, gobfuls of hot, woolly air. I shouted for Mrs. Chowdhury, too. "Mrs. Chowdhury! Mrs. Chowdhury!" I leaped across the vegetable plots between zucchinis, rhubarbs, tomatoes. "What is it, girl?" I stopped so quickly I nearly fell over. It was Elsie Weather, kneeling in the strawberry beds. Just my luck. "What is it, girl? What's wrong?" She used her stick to help herself up. She had two old sponges strapped to her knees with rubber bands. "It's Lindy Chowdhury. I need to get help." "Wait, girl. Perhaps old Elsie can be of use." She brushed some earth off her knee sponges. "I have to be quick. Lindy hit her head. She fell out of a tree. She's not moving." I clattered out sentences in the wrong order, glancing over towards the town. Elsie Weather swapped her stick from one unsteady hand to the other, reached into her pocket and brought out a hanky. She coughed into it, like she was coughing up her insides. My legs quivered, ready to run. "Lindy Chowdhury." She refolded her hanky. Her fingernails were thick and yellow. "An eldest, isn't she?" The sun spilled over Elsie's shoulder, straight into my eye. "Yes, but I've got to hurry, Mrs. Weather. I've got to go." "Wait, Cruz girl." She reached forward and grabbed my hand. "How old is she, this Lindy?" Her thumb bone pressed hard into my palm. I tried to pull away. "How long till she goes to camp?" "Mrs. Weather, I don't have time." She pulled me towards her, breathed into my face. I coughed. "How old is she? How long till she goes to camp?" It was Lindy's 14th birthday 2 nights ago. Everyone was there, even Elsie. She can't have forgotten. Can she? She's 14. She's going on Saturday. I pulled my hand away, right out of her grasp. Her thumbnail scraped my skin. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Weather. I've got to go. I'm sorry." "Storm's coming." She grabbed at me again. I ran, away from Elsie, away from the caravans, over to the town. The Parker brothers were coming out of Frog Alley. Robbie, Neil, Griffin, Lyle, all thick beards and rolled up sleeves. "Help!" I called out. "Help! We need help!" And that is the end of chapter 2 of The Middler by Kristy Applebaum. So other books that you might like that have kind of a similar theme. So this is a little bit dystopian. Some things are familiar, but generally speaking, it's a little dystopian, a different world, different kind of parameters to how people function. So one of the first books I thought of was the Among the Hidden series by Margaret Peterson Haddix. It's very similar. It features, in that story, it's, I believe, 2 children. The families are only allowed to have 2 children, and if you have a third child, you have to keep them hidden because you're not supposed to have 3, and the government would take that child. So that would be probably a good read-alike for this book as well. This actually, especially the Quiet War, kind of reminded me of Pax by Sarah Pennypacker. because in that it's about a boy and his pet fox, and they want to be reunited. But in the background, there's kind of this war, but it's never really mentioned, kind of like this in a little bit. So there's other stories that you might also enjoy. Eventown might be a good read alike for this, by Corey Ann Haydew. The Search for Wonderlaw is another good read alike for this, and that is by Tony de Terlizzi. I think I said that right. And Inkheart. Again, kind of like the fighting of joining the resistance, trying to fight for getting things back to normal. And Inkheart, it's about a father and his daughter, and the father has an ability where when he reads a book out loud, the book comes to life, and he unfortunately lets out some villains from books, so they have to kind of set everything right. So these are some good read-alikes for The Middler. This is a brand new book. It was published, I believe, earlier this year, so it is from 2020. So if you haven't gotten a chance to read The Middler, we have it available at the Warminster Library. All right, you guys, we are done with our Monday book tasting. We'll be back next week with some more. And as always, we hope to see you very soon at the Warminster Library.